Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House in Springfield. For over 200 years, we have been preaching love and the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Here we don't expect to think alike, but to love alike. We invite you to join us in seeking truth and sharing love with our neighbors. If you're a guest with us today, we invite you to simply enjoy being with us. There will be an opportunity to introduce yourself at the end of the service. If you have an announcement, there will be an opportunity for you to share that announcement at the end of the service as well.
The words for our chalice lighting are from Reverend Christian Schmidt. Let us wake up, not just from Sunday morning drowsiness and from the wish to spend a few more luxurious moments in bed. Let us wake up to the world that we live in, to its beauty and its wonder, and also to its tragedy and its pain. We must wake up to this reality that not all in our world have as much as we do, no matter how little or how much that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those of us around us, inextricably tied in the great web of which we are all a part. We must stay woke. In the words of our friends and colleagues involved in the Black Lives Matter, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up. Let us stay woke. Let us stay woke. And now, in this time, and in this place, let us worship together.
Thank you, Mellon. It's interesting that in 1966, Martin Luther King delivered a lecture to the UU Association General Assembly in Hollywood, Florida, the Ware Lecture, and it was entitled, "Don't Sleep Through the Revolution." And that is certainly true today. Dr. King had a close relationship with UUism, although he never became a Unitarian. But the UU principles are so aligned with his. The free search for truth, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and social justice. Dr. King received the Nobel Peace Prize that was awarded to him in 1964 in Oslo, Norway. And I would like to share with you today some excerpts from that speech.
Traveling to find a new sense of dignity. This same road has opened for all Americans a new era of progress and hope. It has led to a new civil rights bill, and it will, I am convinced, be widened and lengthened into a superhighway of justice as Negro and white men in increasing numbers create alliances to overcome their common problems. The final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant. I believe that even amid today's mortar bursts and whining bullets, that is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, men other-centered can build up. I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed and nonviolent redemptive goodwill, proclaim the rule of the land. And the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and every man shall sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. I still believe that we shall overcome.
While remaining muted, please say the affirmation of our church with me. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve the needs of all beings, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with the source of our being.
Let the words of the affirmation that Jeff read to us echo in our ears. That's who we are. And remember our 7 principles: the worth and dignity of every person, social justice, acceptance of one another, free and responsible search for truth, democracy, a peaceful world community, respect for the interdependent web of all existence. These define us. This is what we are committed to and to which we give service. So we really are a very nice bunch of people. But we also are angry. There was an article about this service in the Springfield Reporter, the lovely picture of smiling Rajni Edmonds, but the title over his head was "People at UU Angry," or "Angry People at UU." That didn't sound so good until you read the article. Yes, we are angry. We're angry about the social injustices, about the hate, the inequality, the wars, the suffering in the world. But you know, anger is not always a bad thing. Anger can be very motivating. It wakes us up. Remember, stay awake. And it motivates us to do something. We follow the example of Martin Luther King Jr. We support Black Lives Matter. We want to be good allies. We march and attend peaceful rallies. We wave flags and put up banners. We read and discuss books like My Grandmother's Hands. Can we do more? Let's have a reality check here. We are predominantly a white congregation in a predominantly white state, Vermont. Can we really understand the Black experience? To help us learn, we are very honored to have with us today Rajni Edmonds, our guest speaker. Rajni is a spoken word poet, an MC, an author, teaching artist, activist, and facilitator. He originally comes from Seattle, Washington, but has become a Vermonter and resides in Burlington. His latest work is entitled Their Names Are Mine. Rajni, you're on.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I appreciate the invitation to be with you all this morning. It's an honor to hold space together in honor of the life of Dr. Martin Luther King and in the need for affirming and actualizing peace and justice in the world. I think I'll share some brief parts of my history as introduction and then maybe share a poem or two and try to hold space for maybe the latter majority of the time. just for engagement, because that's the purpose of my work, is in terms of holding space to touch people's hearts and minds, is to allow space for people to share and engage in how they're impacted and how they engage in the world. And I feel like that's a critical part to humanizing the world, even more than understanding particularly the Black experience, which probably no person of African descent individually would be up to the task to express such a vast thing as any demographic of human being. But I think humanizing comes into play when we hold space for hearing each other's stories and learning and growing together and understanding in ways we've been isolated and disconnected from that mutual understanding. So I'll share a brief bit about how I came to poetry. My mother was the founder of the African American Writers Alliance, the first Black writers group in the Northwest, and I was the youngest member at age 11. So I was always immersed in the culture and expression of my elders and my peers, and that gave me a love and appreciation for the power of words to touch people's hearts and minds, to empower and inspire. She was also a foster parent to over 70 children, so I had a great deal of brothers and sisters growing up from many different backgrounds. And I think for me personally, that opened the doorway for me to appreciate mutual humanity in real time, having a familial relationship with so many different brothers and sisters of different skin colors, different ethnicities, different cultures, different nationalities. I think that's irreplaceable, more than intellectual or perception-based or superficial perspective of appreciating mutual humanity. It takes that real-time fellowship. So I'm thankful for that. And that's why I use my art as a means to confront white supremacy and to affirm mutual humanity, to as Martin Luther King had spoken of, have that eternal hostility to things that divide us. So I think I use my art as not only as a means for that, for holding space for it in the minds of people, but also as a cathartic outlet for my peace of mind. So I hope that this sharing inspires and resonates with you and often challenges you to grow in ways maybe you've not foreseen, and to touch and inspire your own circle and tandem, because I think we really need that from white people in particular. We need people who storm the Capitol. I'm not in an isolated box. I'm sure there's some relationship and degrees of separation between us. So we all have to have a responsibility of integrity, seeing what we can do to transform the consciousness of people, for each other, for respect, for human dignity. So the first piece I'd like to share with you is called Happy Black History Month, or excuse me, Why We Still Need Black History Month. And I wrote this actually for response to a question that was posed to me by a librarian when I was working at an elementary school here in Vermont. I'm from Seattle, Washington, but I've resided in Burlington for the past 10 years now. So the librarian had asked me, so no offense, but that's how she prefaced it. I was like, oh, whoa, you never know when you get that. No offense, if there's going to be something offensive to follow. So but I said, oh, no, go ahead, ask your question. She said, do you think we still need Black History Month, or do you think it should be February? Are you offended it's the shortest month, or it should be longer, or you should have it at all? So I kind of dwell with that question. This is how this piece was born. Don't be so fearful of being racist that it deludes your common sense. Are so fearful of racism existing, you become a hypocrite. I wrote this on the off chance there would be some Black people who love themselves enough to listen in the audience, or some white people who know Black folk exist in more than convenient moments, or just some human folk who love truth and have enough sense to care about their roots. The librarian asks me, why do you think we still need Black History Month? For the same reason that Texas calls slavery unpaid internship, because the evil of ignorance and racism must be vigilantly opposed, with truth, love, and sincere inclusion, because it was once Negro History Week, and for the children who daily see themselves through the lens of stereotypes, and those who only know television as relationship to Black people and people of color, for my daughters who are growing and will not be choked out by the diminishing of our values, for the legacy of our people that makes American ideals a sought-for reality rather than a cliche banality, for you, for your spirit and your conscience, so it doesn't putrefy in the delusion of denial and fear-made religion, because Black people must not become history. Our story is part of your story. The beauty, wonder, triumphs, and trials need to be known, sung from the hilltops and mountain peaks, resounding in the valleys and grasslands, echoing down the alleyways and boulevards, because Black, red, brown, yellow are the colors of my true love's hair and the universe, because beauty and truth will not be contained, because these are our ancestors. We owe them a debt of gratitude, because love will not be silenced, because teaching white supremacy is poison. We are all still recovering, conditioned to tolerate in small doses. The human family must heal. Soon this sickness will be vomited, and all that will remain will be you, beautiful, healthy, free-minded you. Think of it as your chance to celebrate the human family in preparation for making every day our celebration. So that's why we still need Black History Month. I think I'll share one more piece. This is a title piece from my book, entitled "Their Names Are Mine." I wrote this actually after Trayvon Brown was killed. It's called "For Trayvon Mike Brown and the Countless Unknown." This speaks to the litany of brutality and racist and white supremacist terrorism that people of African descent have suffered through. Lynching is not dead. It's done in broad daylight, under the hot lights of media frenzy, for Black blood, white guilt, white fear, and white acquittal, where brown boys are still expendable. Michael Vick should have had Zimmerman's lawyer. Brown boys are worth less than Black dogs. Trayvon should have been a brown lad. Maybe then we'd see more of a humane society's presence. If poems could march in the streets, overturn verdicts, bring corrupt police to justice, if they could bring a boy back his life and a mother back her son, a father back his boy, return bullets to a gun, unloose the lynch rope and unravel the knots from choked throats, we would not be choking on tears. When do our lives become valuable in the eyes of the law? When does hate cease to be exonerated behind a badge and lighter skin? And God forbid you wear a hoodie in the rain while having Black skin with Skittles in your pocket. You can taste the rainbow, but you can't taste freedom. You can taste your own blood, but you can't taste the rainbow. Diversity is white people's code word for niggas. You can taste the rainbow, but not if you're too dark. The rainbow may come during a storm. If you're too dark on a block in a hoodie and the Skittles fall from your pocket, you never taste the rainbow. Your killer has the right to stand his ground. He may shoot you in the heart, and America may relive it in sordid detail. She is only reliving her nightmare. She dreams nightmares often. Open caskets, ashes, wetted limbs, no coffins. 2. His name is Trayvon Martin, Renee Davis, Khalif Browder, Corey Jones, Freddie Gray, Michael Sabbie, Terrence Sterling, Terrence Crutchland, Dion Kay, Kwawan Charles, D. Wiggum, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Pamela Turner, Jordan Baker, Andy Lopez, Kamani Gray, Timothy Stanberry, Rakina Jones, Rennell Lewis, Wendell Allen, Michael Brown, Akai Gurley, Usman Zongo, Manuel Loggins, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Kendrick McDade, Yvette Smith, Luis Rodriguez, Matthew Paulo. His name is Amadou Diallo. His name, he has a name. His name is I Can't Breathe. His name is Emmett Till. His name. You must remember his name. James Byrd Jr. You may whisper it in the wind. You may hear it in your skin. His name is Guilty in his innocence. Freedom fighter, martyr, troublemaker. His name, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, he has a name. His name is Black Boy, Blacklisted, Blackballed. His name is Black Power, Black babies in the black market for green cash. Stolen life, tied to a tree, burnt at the stake. His name, probable cause, the Negro problem, chalk outline, white man's fear. His name, ear for souvenir. His name, Black Nigger Boy, Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton, Medgar Evers. His name saves lives, mobilizes movements. His name is Watch for a Black Messiah, bullet to the heart, boy in jaws of wolf, white girl called rape, whistle too free, head too high. His name, look me in my eye. His name, must die, gangster, thug, menace, stereotype. His name is Wretched Like Demon. His name is Take Me to the Iron Ridge on Main Street. His name's legs are pulled until his neck cracks. Stabbed, hung, shot, burned, ravaged by relic hunters. His name is Mistaken Identity. Scottsboro Boys, The Tuskegee Experiments, David Walker, Living, Breathing, Black Manhood, Heathen, Pagan, No Salvation. His name is You Free Nigga, and get over it. Kunta Kinte,
stolen African, strange fruit, stranger in a strange land, in danger of deranged hands, enemy of the state, unit the center, asphalt art, bloody memory, collateral damage, white man's burden. That happened so long ago. Chain gang, wage slave, chattel, on the rack, in the irons, on the run, wanted. His name is Arthur the Cancer felt more thistles than cotton. His name is Put Your Hands Up, Spread 'em, Stop or I'll Shoot. His name is Bang! 41 shots, Assata Shakur, Angela Davis, Breakfast Program, Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. His name is, he has a name. His name is beaten severely, urinated on, chained by the ankles. His name is dragged for 3 miles and decapitated. 81 places have the remains. His name is missing an arm. His name is Crackhead, war on drugs, war on poverty, scapegoat, sacrificial lamb. His name is Kicked Carcass, convict, criminal, thief, drug dealer, victim, still a child. His name will never breathe again. His name has a mother. His name is Expendable, Sundown Laws, Jim Crow cars, Jim Crow bars. His name is Racial Profiling. In court, let's call him profiling, but this is not about race. His name is Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells. No rights a white man is bound to respect. His name has a title when he dies. His name is Mr. Martin, wearer of the black hoodie, walker of the home path, wrong place, wrong time, wrong skin, wrong crime. His name is holder of the Skittles. His name, his mother knows his name. Her tears spell it in big, bold letters down her cheeks. His name is gone too soon. His name is Darky, Spook, Jigaboo, Sambo. His name is different, too difficult to be pronounced by thin lips with forked tongues. His name dies without justice. Missing, lost, bottom of the ocean, shark food, triangle trade of littered bones. His name is Sunchild, star fruit, young, gifted, and black, but you can call him nigga. His name, he has a name. His name is The Sun is Rising. His name is Wake Up! I know his name because his name is mine. Thank you for holding space for me to share. Joanne, did you want to introduce space?
Yes. At this time, we will have a moment to respond or comment or ask a question to Rajni. And because we have so many people here on the Zoom call, we would ask you to simply unmute yourself and speak your name, say your name, and go ahead and speak. And we can start now.
I'd just like to say thank you. That was very touching, touched my heart, and I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you felt some value from it. It's so important to share and hold space for cultivating compassion for people.
Did I hear you say you had 70 brothers and sisters growing up?
That's right. My mother was a foster parent from pretty much my age 9 on. So I had a lot of different brothers and sisters growing up. Definitely. It was a household full of children's laughter and a lot of learning, a lot of growth.
It sounds like it. Must have been pretty crazy, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Coming and going all the time?
Yeah, definitely had some patience cultivating there. I think that when you learn to see people going through all types of traumatic history, and it gives you an appreciation for learning that everybody has a backstory, and that and also witnessing in real time the power that love and positive affirmation and sincere embracing of people has to heal and grow people mutually.
Wow.
Could you show the book again, that book that you held up?
Oh, sure. Yes, it's called Their Names Are Mine. It was just released. It's a compilation of my work from age 17 to almost 40. And this came out in 2019, but I've been using it to hold conversations with elementary to college age, as well as different educators.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Mueller.
Hello,
And
Sharon.
Hi. My question for you is, can you give us a little insight into, well, I'll make the positive side of the question. What you see in Vermont that gives you hope with this situation, and then maybe what still needs to be done.
Well, I think we have a great deal to do in Vermont, as we have a great deal to do in the nation and the world. What gives me hope is seeing people who do stand up and speak truth to power, particularly youth, displaying that type of courageous integrity that we can model for adults in terms of standing up against injustice and speaking truth to power unapologetically. Really valuing the things that Martin and Malcolm spoke of in terms of human dignity and the recognition that you can't have a second-class citizenry and claim that you're a place of freedom. I think that we have to outgrow the superficial acceptance, of appearances and rather sustain the substance of things that really allows for all human beings' needs to be served well, and to really do some deep-seated soul searching and self-reflection about ourselves and our own communities. I'm speaking particularly about white people, but I feel as all human beings, we have a vested interest in collective liberation. So any way that we can eyeball and scrutinize our own personal integrity and responsibility, accountability in the struggle and the cause for all human beings to be embraced and accepted and celebrated, not tolerated, because that's what you do with diseases. And I think we'll find our aims in the right place.
Rajni, my name's Jeff. I noticed in your poem, you mentioned diversity. I always thought that diversity was a good thing, something we should strive for no matter in what context or what community we are in. But to you, it apparently seems like another code word. Could you expand upon that?
Well, definitely, and I want to distinguish. I think that diversity is actually the natural law of existence as far as the universe goes. There's always going to be a diverse array of beings, and that's the majestic splendor of the Most High in our creation. That's a wonderful thing. I think that human beings, particularly Europeans in the white supremacist paradigm, have coded that word to mean other than white people. So when you think about diversity, you think about non-white people, Black people, indigenous people, people of color. It's not necessarily talking about Bosnians and Serbians all the time, even though it can apply to that. I think in an American context, I've just seen the words thrown around so much that it's become like a buzzword. It really means for an assuaging of a guilty conscience among white people to portray this temporary display of saying we celebrate this or we're for this, but I haven't seen it meaningfully, substantively applied in human relationship. Otherwise, we would still have the same ills in society. Thank you for that question.
Rajni, this is Deb Yeagley. I'm thankful for that question from Jeff and answer from you. I'm working on a training for a co-op I'm on the board for, and it started out a few years ago. We were talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we've been the three of us who are facilitating the training are wondering whether we should change the name, and that your response gives me some good insight into that question. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, good. My honor. I'm glad you're receiving something of value. Definitely feel free to reach out if you would like to connect in terms of dialogue or future engagements, holding space for youth to adults. My email is just theirnamesaremine@gmail.com. So I'm always open to connect and engage. And I feel like a lot can be gained through shared communication and vulnerable shared story.
Thank you. This was very moving.
My honor.
Ben, I think I saw your hand up. You're muted, Bet. You're muted.
Hi, Rajni. I'm Bet.
Hello, Bet.
I was lucky enough to have a marvelous fresh air brother. He was not a foster child, but he came to us during the summers for all of his growing up. And I was quite young, and I just loved him to pieces. And there were others in my town and children, and we got together and played. And it was a very good, enriching experience. Come to find out, my brother learned a lot about living in a poor Black community, and learned a lot of things maybe he shouldn't have learned. Do you know some things that you would prefer white people not to dwell on? And what should we keep our eye on going towards our goals and going towards justice and just living with one another? Or do you think the sharing of all kinds of experiences are good?
I would say, I'd say both. I think it's human beings benefit from a diverse array of experiences, and that includes of people, and so that's always beneficial to learn different people move in the world, and to learn from different cultures and backgrounds. That can only enhance your understanding of the world for every human being. I'd say for white people in particular, what not to dwell and maybe where to aim. I think that as far as being allies, some words I've heard so often that they become kind of triggering for me. So I'm like, when I hear ally, it makes me feel like, oh, so you're helping me out with something. But it takes away from the understanding of a true narrative of humanity where everybody has a collective responsibility. And I think as integrity-based human beings, especially when I hear affirmation that you have in the UU in terms of that web, then it speaks to the honoring the integrity of your own humanity, not as white people, but as people. And that's a higher standard, I think. I think when you look at white people, sadly, it's progress for white people simply not to actively harm someone, because that's just been such a practice that's instituted in the culture and the ethos of the society, to either have an apathetic stance on how people are mistreated or to be actively taking place in their harm. So sadly, progress for white people is not harming someone. But real progress for humanity is contributing something useful, holding space for true value to be shared. And I hold so-called white people accountable to maybe shed that title white and embrace their humanity in a deeper and a fuller and more meaningful way, and practice that by how they contribute to human family. All people, Black people, Indigenous people included, people who have been harmed who are in need of repair, and changing that narrative to away from allyship to a mutual appreciation of our collective responsibility for collective liberation. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Rajni, thank you so much. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. We're going to have to end this part right now, but we thank you so much for being with us today. That has meant a lot to us. And we can continue this conversation in our social hour at the end after the service. So all those who want to stay on after that would be great. Right now we're going to, did you have any last words, Rajni?
Yeah, yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for holding space for me to engage with you all. And I wish you all and your families the best. And I hope we can stay in connection and fellowship and develop deeper relationship, because I know that we all gain from it.
We'd love that. Thank you again. Okay. Okay, it's time now for another hymn. And this one is We Begin Again in Love with Julaine and Melon.
Thank you so much, Rajni. And as we take all of this in, it's wonderful to look forward, look to the future of how can we start over? How can we acknowledge what has really happened, acknowledge the pain, and as Bet was asking, and move forward, move into the love that we long for, the collective responsibility, as you said, Rajni, the collective hope. So here, this litany of atonement from Reverend Robert Eller Isaacs. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of admonitions of the Spirit.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For these and so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
Give ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
I have to say at this point that this service very well is going to go overtime. And I really apologize for that, but I'm going to do it anyway, because the material to follow is something that we really need to hear and consider. If some of you have to leave, that's quite okay, but please bear with me. The next question we're going to consider is, can a white person understand the Black experience? I have a little bit of an article from the Huffington Post by Lorraine Devon Wilke, and she wrote, they can want to, they can try, they can watch it, read about it, talk about it, blog about it, they can weep over its injustices, march in solidarity with its victims, use the right phrases and hashtags, and even show homage for its music and culture. But just as non-parents can never fully understand the experience of actually being parents, forget the my brother has kids thing, it ain't the same. So too can whites never fully grasp the day-to-day, can't turn it off, always their experience of being Black in America. I want to share with you a personal story. I worked in an international, basically German school in Berlin, and was a counselor, school psychologist, etc. We had class conferences at the end of each semester to review the children who were on probation and hear how they were doing and make some decisions. One of the little guys that came up was named Billy, and he was one of mine, and he was having tremendous problems. He was Black, an American GI father, and a German stepmother. He was having learning problems, behavioral problems, and after much discussion, I asked his teacher, who was a very lovely, gentle, white German woman, how she thought his being Black was affecting him. And she looked at me as if I'd slapped her in the face. And everybody went, oh. And she started with, I'm not prejudiced. Nobody in my class is prejudiced. Nothing like that has ever happened. And she went on defending herself. So I calmed her down and said, no, the question was, how do you think Billy feels being the only Black child in the class? And that changed everything. And that's it, to be able to understand what it feels like to be the only Black person. And as I said, we have the situation in Vermont where 2% of the population is Black, which means that white people in Vermont do not have a lot of contact with other races. And that is where we are lacking. We lacked our own experience in being together with Black people. My husband is Black, as most of you know. And in the early years, I mean, we've been here in Vermont for like 21 years now. And Willie and Joanne or Willie are pretty well known in town. But in the beginning, he would go shopping at the plaza and come home and say, look at my back. Look, is there a sign on my back? Is there a sign that says, poor lonely Black guy, please talk to me? Because he was so amazed that people would actually cross the parking lot when he was going to his car just to talk to him. And it could be about everything. Oh, nice car you have there. There's a snowstorm coming. Just to have that contact, which we found quite interesting. And another time, a friend of ours came to visit, and he brought his grandson with him, both Vermonters. And the grandson, who was about 10 or so, met Willie for the first time. And he looked at him and said, oh, I always wanted to meet an African American. And that seemed a little odd too. And I thought, poor deprived kid. So as a biracial couple, we have never had a problem. We've been very comfortable here in Springfield, Vermont. People have always been very friendly and open and nice to us. I have to say, though, that now things have changed a little, not here in Springfield, but we have become very aware of the fact that in recent times, we can actually be considered targets. And there are some places, some towns in this state that we feel uncomfortable about spending time in or walking down Main Street there, which is very unfortunate. So what is it like being a Black person living in a predominantly white society? I want to share with you a video I found by a fellow named Chase Jones. One second. Who has a bit to say about that.
Today, I want to talk about what it was like to grow up black in a predominantly white environment. Buckle your seatbelts because I might ruffle some feathers with this one, but it's important. So let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Chase here, and if this is your first video watching, make sure you start by hitting that subscribe button. I post a new video like this every single Thursday. I don't know what that was. It's like I'm about to get into a fight or something. I want to talk about sharing my experience about what it's like growing up as one of the only black people in a predominantly white community. Now, before I jump right into it, I just want to say three things. One, I don't speak on behalf of the entire black race. You might know someone who's black and had a different experience. You might be black and had a different experience. And so I don't want to make it seem like I'm speaking on behalf of everyone. This is just me sharing my experience. The second thing is I was originally going to make this video with my brother, but he's a busy man. His schedule just didn't work out, and so we couldn't connect. But we actually made this list together, so this is kind of both of our experiences growing up. And then one third and final thing. All right, so with all those disclaimers out of the way, I'm sure someone's still going to get offended by what I'm about to say, but here we go. So I said my brother and I made a list, so what I want to do is I want to share 10 things. I'm going to try and keep this video kind of short, but 10 things that I experienced growing up black in a white area. So the first thing is black jokes. Yep. We're going there. We're diving right in. Here we go. And by black jokes, I mean jokes about black stereotypes. I feel like sometimes I use those, and I've seen other black people use those as a way to sort of cut the tension. Like, for example, if you walk into an all-white room, and you walk in, you're obviously the only black person. There's an elephant in the room already. And so sometimes I think we use those sort of jokes to sort of just get the elephant out of the room. Like, no one's talking about it. Boom. There you go. You just made a joke. It just kind of softens the tension. Now, the problem with that approach, and it's come back to bite me several times, is that then everyone else thinks that it's just free range to make as many offensive jokes as they can. And then it gets awkward. I'm like, why'd you say that? They're like, well, you said it. And it just leads to a big mess. And so I'd encourage you, if you are watching this video, that's not the right approach. But again, I'm just sharing my experiences. And that's one thing that I've had to deal with my whole life is just the awkwardness surrounding black jokes, often self-induced, but that's the first thing. The second thing is feeling awkward when topics of race would come up in class. When I was in high school, whenever the notion of slavery, whenever the notion of civil rights, anything that was black related, it's just awkward. I feel like the whole class is just staring at me like this. When I was in high school, I don't remember the teacher's name, and I probably wouldn't call her out even if I did. We were talking about slavery or race or something, and she said, Chase, can we get the black opinion on this topic? And I was like, oh, man, just get put on the spot like that. And that was the first time that actually happened, but whenever we talked about race, it just felt like that was happening. It feels like everyone's staring at you in the room. Number 3, people touching my hair. And this is one of the ones that my brother gave me. My brother has dreads. I went through a phase in high school and junior high when I had braids, believe it or not, and I also had an afro. Side note, I feel like every black male who grew up in a white environment went through some hair phase where they had to prove to people that they were black. But people were always coming up just patting my head like I'm Buddha and going to give them good luck or something. And I don't know, it was weird. I've never had the urge to touch someone's hair of another race. It's not just me. I've had this conversation with several people, and it's happened to them as well. People like touching our hair, I guess. It does not give you good luck. Number 4, again, this is where it gets real. Being told that you're not black enough. So I'm going to kind of touch on this more towards the end of this video, but that's one thing that I've heard ever since I was in first grade or something. People would say, oh, you're not really black, or oh, you're not black enough, or the term, you're an Oreo. Black on the outside, white on the inside. Don't ever say that to anybody. That's not a joke. That's not funny. But that's something that I would hear a lot growing up. That's something that my brother said that he hears a lot growing up, or has heard a lot growing up. But that's hurtful. And I'm going to circle back to that because I'm going to touch on that at the end. But that's something that a lot of black people who grew up in white areas experience. And this isn't on the list, but the other thing is they compare you to other black people. They say, oh, you're not as black as this person, or you're not as black as this person. It's frustrating. Number 5, assuming that you're close friends with someone just because they're black. All right, so, most people aren't literally the only person in an all-white school or an all-white area. Usually there's at least 2 or 3 of us. So, for example, I was I think one of 8 in my graduating class from high school, one of 8 other black students. And there were like 240 people in our graduating class. But we weren't all necessarily really close friends. And everyone assumed that we were really close friends. Another quick story. When I first moved down here to Texas, I was working with this older lady. You know, we were talking and somehow the conversation of I was from Ohio came up. And she looked at me and she's like, oh, I knew a colored man from Ohio once. Another side note, don't call black people colored. That's not the term anymore. Anyway, she's like, I knew a colored man from Ohio once. His name was Mike. Did you know him? I was like, oh yeah, Mike, yeah. No, I don't remember what I said. I should have been like, yeah, we played basketball together and ate chicken on the weekends. You know, using those black jokes to cut the tension. But no, I don't remember what I said. But people just seem to assume that if we're black, we know other people who are black, which sometimes is the case, but most often it's not. Number 7, being told that you're one of the good ones. It just sounds so racist. I mean, what does that even mean? I put it on the list because this is something that I've heard for my whole life. But I think if a lot of people sat there and thought about what they were about to say, they'd realize how racist that sounds. Because basically what they're saying is, I have this preconceived notion of what black people are, usually formed by the news and by rap culture. And so this is what I think black people are: drug dealers, people out there gangbanging, shooting people, all that stuff. And just because you don't fit into that mold of black people, you're one of the good ones. This is what most black people are like, but you're one of the good ones. Come on, man. I don't know. I wasn't planning on getting upset during this video, but I mean, this is something that I've been told several times. And the other thing that baffles me is that people treat this like a compliment. Anyway, I'm gonna move on because I don't want to make this video too long. Number 8, not fully fitting into either race. This is probably the biggest one. And when you grow up the minority in a majority culture, and you're one of the only ones in that minority, you kind of feel like you don't belong fully. And the reason why I say that is because growing up, I'd have white people who were telling me, oh, you're not black enough. But then I'd also have, you know, some of my black friends and family members saying, oh, you're not black enough. And so you look at my skin and you can tell that clearly I'm not white, but then I'm being told that I'm not black. So I'm like caught in the middle. You know, what am I? Joseph Solomon did a video a little while ago, black Christian YouTuber who you definitely need to check out, amazing channel. But he did a video called The Double Consciousness of Black Folk. He didn't make that phrase, that was coined by W.E.B. Du Bois years and years and years ago. But what he talks about in that video is that when you're black, you kind of learn to navigate different lifestyles. So you think one way when you're with black people, but then you realize you think a completely different way when you're in a white setting. And this is a conversation for another video that I'd love to dive into. But the reason why I bring that up is because when you grow up black in a white environment, you kind of carry that mindset with you in both. I don't know if that's triple consciousness. I don't know what to call that. When you're in a white setting, you act differently, whether it's subconsciously or whether it's purposely. But when you're black and you grow up in a white setting, you almost sort of have that attitude when you're around black people as well. You're like, am I going to come across as too white if I'm in this environment? So this is one issue that I've dealt with my entire life. To some degree, I still do. But what's helped me overcome that is just the understanding that my identity is not based in my skin color. It's not based in the way I behave. It's based in the one that I serve, and that's being a Christian and being a follower of Christ. And so none of that other stuff matters when I'm putting him first. But I mean, to some degree, you know, everyone wants to feel like they belong, right? So that's one issue. Number 10, being everyone's black experience. Now, I almost didn't put this on the list because I don't want it to come across as that I don't want this to happen. So when you're the only black person who grows up in a predominantly white area, you're most people's only exposure to what it's like to be black. And so they're coming up to ask you questions all the time, and it almost puts a lot of pressure on us to kind of be the right black experience. Again, I started this video by saying I don't speak for the whole black race. But in a sense, it sort of seems like I do sometimes when I'm talking to my white friends. Now, the reason why I almost didn't put this in the video is because I've embraced that role. I'm fine with it. I enjoy it. If you're a white friend of mine, or if I don't even know you, I want you to come and ask me these questions, because if we don't have this conversation, then you might not have the chance to have this conversation with someone else before you say something that might offend someone else. I want you guys to keep asking me questions. I want to try and navigate these discussions together so that neither of us will offend someone else. So that's the list. I just realized I really didn't say anything positive, because there are positives. So I want to end this on a positive note. And that positive note is that I think when you grow up the minority in a majority culture, you kind of are able to think more like that majority culture. And what I mean by that is when things pop up in the news, when I have these difficult conversations, I'm able to think about it from the perspective of the person that I'm talking to. So that's a positive. I really hope that I didn't offend anyone in this video. Again, I wasn't talking about anyone specifically, but it's a conversation that I'd love to keep going. So if you have any...
So the question is, can a white person understand the Black experience? Well, we are Black and white together, singing for our lives. I'd like to share a story or an experience that a friend has mentioned to me recently. She is a Vermonter and she has a Black friend, and they've been friends for many, many years. And this person has moved away now, but they're still in contact. And now the conversations are a little bit different. And my Vermont friend realizes that there is so much that she did not know about her friend and what she was going through. And so the important thing here is we need to be able to open up to each other. Open up and share and let each other in. You cannot be the other person, but you can be close. You can share the experiences. It works the other way too, though, because being part of a Black family through my husband's side, and I have a Black family on my own side, sometimes I hear, something's going on, they're laughing about something, and I go, what was that? Oh, you wouldn't understand, that's a Black thing. That's kind of like having, boom, the door shut in my face. And like, tell me though, I want to know. Teach me about it. Let me in. And that's what we need to do on both sides. Open up, let each other in, teach each other, and teach our children well. And I think now I'm turning this over to Melon now for our prayer.
A bunch of us are reading the book and working together on my grandmother's hands. And one of the lessons from this is that it's in our bodies. And what you've just heard today, the stories you've heard from Joanne, from Rajni, from Chase Jones, from the readings, from Martin Luther King, all those words have fallen on your body. So feel your body right now. Feel your body. And let this be an embodied prayer. Breathe in. Feel where you're feeling tension in your body. Some part of you that when you heard some words, tensed up with it, you clenched up. Just be gently present with those places in your body. You can even, if it helps you, you can even touch those places. If it's your heart, where'd you feel it? Your neck, your head, your gut. Just gently place your hands and notice where in your body these messages have fallen. Spirit of life, the source, the one, thank you so much for this beautiful winter day, and thank you for the gathering of this spiritual community. We are a people who are angry, who are joyful, who are everything under the earth. Thank you for this meal of insight and wisdom and stories. Be with us as we try to digest all of this. Help us find breath in our bodies to loosen up the stuck places. Help us let light into our minds to open to new ideas. Help us open our ears to listen to the stories and lives of people who have walked in different shoes than us. Help us be present to our own hearts. Help us feel the tension in our hearts, and help us breathe and feel the hope in our own hearts. As Rajni said, collective responsibility, collective liberation. As Chase Jones said, serving the one, finding unity there. For all of our misdeeds, our misspoken words, our lost opportunities, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. May we take what we have learned, what we have been challenged with in today's sharing, in Pat's beautiful song, in all of the music, the stories, the words, may we take it all in and may we let it help us affirm our commitment, our collective responsibility, as Rajni said. Martin Luther King's favorite song, the one Pat sung at the beginning. May we find that connection with you, Great Source. The work that needs to be done is bigger than any individual can do. It's bigger than any collective can do. But it is nothing in our united love. Be with us, Great Spirit. Heal our minds, our hearts, our bodies. Infuse us with hope that we may each take our place and assume our important part of this collective opportunity to heal our beautiful and bruised world. Thank you for this day and this gathering. May it be so, blessed be. Amen.
I know it's really, really late.
Okay, it's okay. This is an important meal, Joanne. Don't worry, don't apologize.
Okay, it's probably the longest UU service in history.
It's fine.
Tulane has a chant for us with "We Begin Again in Love." Tulane?
Same chant that you heard me sing earlier. I invite you to sing along with me and the choir now. Feel your emotions in your solar plexus as you sing along.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
If you have found community here, treasure it. If you have found challenge here, I hope you have, go and sit quietly with whatever is stirring in your heart. And if you have found hope here, carry it out into our beautiful and bruised world that needs you woke, you fully awake.